And I like to start teaching about contemplation by saying a wise old monk once said that contemplation is the highest expression of our intellectual and spiritual life. It is life itself, fully awake, fully active, fully aware of its own existence. It is spiritual wonder, spontaneous awe at the sacredness of life and being. It is gratitude for life, for awareness, and for being. And lastly, he said, it's a vivid realization of the fact that life and being within us proceed from an invisible, transcendent, and infinitely abundant source. Contemplative intelligence really is about accessing that source, accessing the highest kind of intelligence, not IQ, mind you. So through our intellect and emotional intelligence, it opens pathways to who we really are. We're not just our thoughts. That by now we can be assured of. If we really start to develop emotional intelligence later in life, it leads us to a place akin to accessing a quantum field, or I call it the contemplative field, grounded in both scientific and spiritual principles. Contemplation itself transcends reason and intellect, both of them. It's beyond what you can think, How often we have found that intellect, though sharp, ultimately cuts us to pieces rather than helps us at all. Our minds are often set on a trajectory towards becoming increasingly riddled as we go through life with ego defense mechanisms. These mechanisms place us in fight or flight mode, and that state, while occasionally necessary, is becoming a prolonged reality for so many people. And that's the mental health crisis we face today. Half of America is depressed, the other half anxious. I believe the figures are up to 60% of Americans suffer anxiety. And that's a massive, massive number. And of course, then we've got to look at the rest of the world, where the numbers are going through the roof. Prolonged states of stress, now we know, create toxic chemical reactions in our bodies and our minds. They close us off, and they make us actually conform to the mind that's trying to save us, which, as we know from the mere shape of life, is impossible. No one gets out alive. Contemplative intelligence, in many ways, is the mind's highest intelligence. It's not only stranger than you think, it's stranger than you can think. Like the binary system composed of zeros and ones, life can be viewed as a series of problem-solving cycles. These zeros and ones can represent the questions and the answers of life. Philosophers like Einstein suggest that the answers to life lie in questioning everything, a philosophy inherent in contemplative intelligence, but a philosophy that doesn't make sense to the world. They want answers, and when they get them, they become destructive. They implode on the answer. The last book of the Bible is called Revelation for that reason. We're not here to get rock-solid answers. We're not equipped to manage them, to field them, or even to understand them. Science has shown us this. Now we have evidence of it. What have we done with all the knowledge that we've gained? Created destruction, hurt other people, and called them our enemies, when the only enemy is really the one that's within. This is why Jesus said, don't only love your neighbor. He took it so much further, knowing what would come in terms of human consciousness. But love thy enemy. And only when you love the enemy within can you love the enemy without. And this is the conscious shift that the world needs today. Contemplative neuroscience asks us to consider the interplay of alpha and beta waves, the right and the left brain, the forebrain, and the hindbrain. These paradoxes work together in a 0-1 system to create either heaven or hell, chaos or order. It's through contemplative practice or diligent effort, whatever you want to call it, we can cultivate more order than chaos. That's true power. Activating alpha waves promotes relaxations, while beta waves propel us into action. But we must do one before the other. We need time to think, not just with our rational and emotional brains, but with our wise brain. This is the contemplative mind. And when it's missing, we just destruct. We self-destruct, and then we destruct around us. Hurting people hurt people. Transformed people transform people. It's basic, simple math. It's universal math. All you need to know is 1 + 1 or 0 and 1, and know that there's a consequence that your mind, your rational, intellectual mind cannot understand. That's why we create wars, drop bombs, and expect flowers to grow out from where we've dropped those bombs. We get chaos instead of order. When we do bad things and expect good results, that's not a 0 and 1 sum. We're not very clever, so to speak. And we have our philosophers and our scientists, many of them, thinking that they've got answers. Clearly they don't. The mystery of this universe is so broad that our own oceans remain undiscovered. What's inside our own bodies remains a mystery. If you've looked at the size of the universe, never mind the Milky Way or the galaxies that surround us, but this universe is unfathomable, and so are the answers that we seek. So we need to develop contemplative intelligence to understand these things, and we need to understand them from the perspective of our sacred selves, our higher selves, which are divine by nature. If we don't know by now that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, heaven help us. If you cannot see what God is doing, what life is about, in any way, shape, or form, and choose to deny that you have mystery in front of you, and give yourself answers, that you are or are not a Catholic or a Christian or an atheist, it's an ever-evolving consciousness from low to high that we need to walk through. We don't know, and it's too scary for us. So we just move into denial, we move into projection, and hate the neighbor we're supposed to love. We create chaos, not order, in these ways. So when we become open through contemplative practice, through being still and knowing, we create an interplay of these alpha and beta waves, these zeros and ones, that we can generate more questions. That's counterintuitive, which in turn, when we generate those questions, provide more answers. Deep knowing is what we get. We don't get facts. We just get knowing. We get understanding, wisdom, and assistance for navigating this life. Life is an unfolding mystery, and contemplative intelligence is the key to unlocking the mystery. So when we look at zeros and ones, or alpha and beta, we recognize the need for action and stillness. We engage in action through demanding work schedules, pushing ourselves to the limits these days in careers, sports, other endeavors. However, without activating the stillness, we face imbalance. It's inevitable. Imbalance is inevitable. We have to seek it. It's not natural to a mind that is built for survival. We may achieve great success in life, but only to find ourselves adrift and depressed in its aftermath. Look at Hollywood. Look at people you call your role models, actors, politicians, princes and princesses. Without contemplative practice, we become lost. We must learn to ask the right questions, and this is achieved through silence, followed by action. Counterintuitive again. Be still and know that I am God. Contemplative intelligence is the harmonious integration of silence and action, of pause, reflect, act. Currently, we are often trapped in a cycle of restless action leading to sickness, depression, fear, and isolation. So we need a stabilization point between the left and the right, the up, the down, where we integrate both hemispheres of the mind, where we integrate body, heart, and mind, not just one or the other. We need calm, relaxation, and active effort to navigate this life. It's almost too simple to teach, but this integration fosters healing, performance, and the higher life we actually all seek through spiritual awakening and consciousness. Yet most of us choose to sleep. We choose not to look in the darkness for the light. It's another paradox, a contradiction that we're not willing to bear unless we go beyond the intellect, open our hearts with emotional intelligence, and find contemplative intelligence therein. Everything that the desert fathers, the prophets, the monks, and the mystics have taught leads us to seeing light we cannot see, to lean into mystery, uncertainty, and the unpredictability of life, which might be called chaos to a scientist. And inside there is order. Now, if we dig into a cell, we thought an atom, that was it. But when we dig into an atom, we find protons and electrons and neurons and quantum this and qualia that. But we find stillness. Inside a cell is mostly empty space. Counterintuitive again. Only something to be understood with the contemplative mind. Our thinking, like everything else, must encompass both aspects of who we really are. Flesh and spirit, higher and lower self. Immortal and mortal, and on we could go. But we are not just our physical beings. We also possess a spiritual dimension, which in our technologically advanced age remains largely untapped. This neglect contributes to widespread unhappiness. If only we could understand, if we were to measure happiness today, it would likely be at an all-time low, along with calm and peace. Why? It's freely available. It is a choice that Deuteronomy speaks about, putting before us life and death, and the wisdom to choose life. This is what we're faced with today, and we need that CQ to get us to understand it. These qualities are missing in our politics, television, schools and workplaces, and basically in the words of our teachers today. We're not even allowed to mention the name God without someone taking offense. Never mind anything to do with reality. If we understand the duality of existence, we must question why we prioritize action over rest, war over peace, thinking over not thinking. How can we expect to thrive by neglecting our resting states? Isn't that what God's doing? Isn't that what He meant when He said, "It is finished"? There's nothing left to do. We are being done. And that's all the evidence of love that we might need. People actually are beginning to realize the folly of extreme work schedules and the pursuit of wealth at the expense of well-being. It's truly unintelligent to sacrifice sleep and health and peace for money that will never be used. You accumulate so much of it. We've got more billionaires than ever before. This is the kind of aspiration being promoted today, with performance being equated with happiness. All not true. Performance is often driven by external expectations from the world, from parents, significant others. However, the cyclical nature of life, or the samsara of life, is not about endings, but about continuous unfolding. As Revelation suggests, it is a mystery of unfolding, all of it. What's happening in this life is our consciousness is constantly evolving, expanding from a retracted state to broaden our awareness, to really seep in the reality of life. But slowly, as we can hold this reality, so it's revealed to us. This expansion can sometimes lead to a dark night of the soul, a necessary phase, oftentimes, in the journey. The cycle continues even beyond the end of life as we know it. And if you're still, you might find that mystery, those questions of a life beyond what you see in the physical, in just a matter of minutes. So true spirituality involves taking time for stillness, observing the inner dialogue, and recognizing that we are not our thoughts. We're not the body. We're not even the mind. This brings us back to an interplay of stillness and action, alpha and beta, and those zeros and ones we've spoken about. We must realize that one without the other leads to chaos, while the other, integration process, produces order. If we remain solely in a state of action, pushing ourselves beyond our limit, we will trigger our survival brain, which lacks new solutions. And when the brain can't find solutions, it panics. Fear becomes our guide. So the answer is to slow down, to stop. Our fight or flight response is ill-equipped to handle anything else. What distinguishes us from animals is our imago Dei, our ability to choose an attitude of empathy and love, rather than fear. Everything else in nature gives, and if we as humans do not give, we experience pain. A life in survival mode is devoid of progressive joy and peace, and that is our guide. We need to grow and contribute in life, or we suffer. We're being done. Contemplative intelligence allows us to perform at our peak in this life with laser focus, with love rather than fear. Stillness is essential and allows our brainwaves to create new pathways, activating the prefrontal cortex, the seat of creativity and new questioning, as Einstein suggested. In states of anxiety and depression, we are trapped in the back of our minds, repeating the same questions without answers. We cannot reproduce energy without activating these alpha and beta waves, our own cosmic system. When we lose energy, pain signals us to stop. The solution is not more obsessive thinking, but transcending intellect, as the wise monk suggested. This is transformation, a scientific and mathematical process. We must learn to manage ourselves as witnesses, as observers in this life. Don't fall prey to conforming, to thinking that you are your mind. That's the trap that the snake set in the garden. Contemplative intelligence is the space, the silence, the mystery. It is both within us and in the vastness of the universe, something your mind probably cannot understand, something your heart can probably allure to. Athletes in the zone are utilizing CQ, accessing a state of flow in their prefrontal cortex. As Rollo May would say, before an Olympic diver bounds off that board, there's a pause, a necessary one. This contemplative space is a place where we see without seeing, where we access what is already there. It is knowing by unknowing, the paradox that comes through the essence of silence. It is everything and nothing, zero and one together. Contemplation really is the end of two, the end of duality, the end of your enemy being different from you. If we are to be truly intelligent, we must move beyond CQ. In this technologically advanced age, IQ alone is not sufficient. It's not going to get us there. Empathic intelligence and emotional intelligence are essential, leading to a contemplative outlook on life. This allows us to participate in unfolding consciousness as unfolding mystery, sometimes through doing nothing. And we must remember that this is accessible to all, to everyone, free of charge. It is like a zero, indivisible. Holding space for oneself, developing contemplative intelligence through practice is the future of medicine as far as I'm concerned. And it's practice that focuses on self-regulation, managing the body, the heart, the mind. This is achieved through mind yoga, meditation, stillness, but you must remember you need to do these practices. Contemplative intelligence activates the sacred self, that soul part of you where true power resides, where head and heart meet, where body, heart, and mind fall into coherence. Contemplation is your guide back to your sacred self, your authentic state, a state where you can bear unknowing, mystery, uncertainty, where you can lean into discomfort and fear and remain unscathed. You are a sacred, capable being without limits. And this is the paradox the brain cannot understand. The universal answers are always yes, as demonstrated by those who have broken records and shattered boundaries. Contemplation today is the new 4-minute mile. Your journey to sacred self is a return to thriving, a spiritual awakening that unleashes a new earth, a new way of being, where we can recover, heal, and transform ourselves and others. It is the journey back home, the journey back to the divine, to God.